The last meeting of the day was at 4:30. Richard had been in meetings since 7 that morning. He had heard 4 pitches: a Series B logistics platform, a seed-stage cybersecurity tool, a pre-revenue climate tech play that he had asked good questions about and would decline on Tuesday, and a growth-stage consumer brand that had momentum but not the margin structure he required. He had made 3 decisions before lunch and 2 after. He had drunk 4 cups of coffee and eaten a sandwich at his desk at 1:15. At 4:28, his assistant told him the 4:30 was in the lobby. He looked at the 1-page summary on his desk. He had read it twice, once when it came in 3 weeks ago, once this morning. The company was called ClearPath, healthcare navigation software for uninsured and underinsured patients. The ask was $800,000 for an 18-month runway. The founder was Marcus James, 31 years old, self-taught software developer, formerly a community health worker, no co-founder, no institutional backing, 2 small grants. Monthly active users, 4,300, growing at 12% month over month without $1 of marketing spend. The 12% was the reason for the meeting. The 12% without marketing spend was the reason Richard had read the summary twice. He had already, as a matter of process, assessed the likely outcome. Solo founder, significant execution risk. Pre-seed ask in a market where the capital requirement to scale would be substantially larger. Capital efficiency risk. Healthcare navigation, regulatory complexity, long sales cycles, reimbursement uncertainty. 3 boxes that his framework said no to before the founder walked in. He noted this. He was a fair man. He went to the conference room. Marcus was standing when Richard entered, not sitting, not checking his phone, standing at the window looking at the city below. He turned when the door opened. He did not extend his hand immediately. He waited for Richard to come to him, which was either composure or instinct, and Richard suspected it was both. They shook hands. They sat. Richard put the 1-page summary on the table between them. He said, "I've read this twice. The month over month is the reason you're here." Marcus said, "I know." Richard said, "Tell me about the 12%. Marcus said, "Which part?" Richard said, "All of it, but start with why it's happening without marketing spend." Marcus said, "Because the people using it don't need to be marketed to. They need someone to find them." Richard said, "Explain that." Marcus said, "The product works through community health workers and social service organizations. They identify patients who need navigation support, people who are uninsured, underinsured, facing a diagnosis they can't afford to treat, caught in a system they can't read. The health workers load them into ClearPath. The app does the rest. No one is searching for ClearPath. ClearPath finds them." Richard said, "The health workers are your distribution channel." Marcus said, "They're my distribution channel and my acquisition engine and my quality feedback loop. They're why the retention is 81% at 6 months." Richard looked up from the page. He said, 81%. Marcus said, "At 6 months. The summary has it, 2nd paragraph." Richard had read the summary twice. He had not retained 81%. He looked at the page. It was there, 2nd paragraph, 2nd sentence. Before we continue, if you believe that the people closest to the problem are almost always the ones closest to the solution, please like this video, subscribe to Stillwater's Stories, and share this with someone who needs to believe in people again today. He said, "Walk me through the unit economics." Marcus walked him through them. He did it without slides, without a laptop, without looking at the index card in his breast pocket. He had the numbers the way you have numbers when you have been living inside them for 4 years, not recited, present. The customer acquisition cost through health workers was $11. The lifetime value at current retention was $240. The gross margin on the software was 73%. The 18-month runway would be used for 3 things: 2 engineering hires to build the features the health workers had been requesting for 8 months, a partnership team to expand the distribution channel from 40 organizations to 200, and the regulatory certification that would allow ClearPath to integrate with electronic health record systems. Richard said, "The EHR integration is the unlock." Marcus said, "It's the difference between a tool health workers use and a tool health systems use. When health systems use it, the reimbursement structure changes and the scale changes." Richard said, "You've modeled this." Marcus said, "I've lived it. My mother spent 11 years navigating the system without insurance. When she had a cardiac event at 53, I was the one on the phone for 6 months trying to understand what she was entitled to, what she could access, what fell through the cracks. I built the first version of ClearPath in a spreadsheet so she could use it." He said this without heat, without performance, with the flat honesty of a person stating a fact that is simply the origin of everything. The 4,300 people using it now are people like her. The reason the retention is 81% is that once someone finds something that helps them understand a system that was designed to be hard to understand, they don't stop using it. Richard was quiet for a moment. He said, 14 pitches. Marcus looked at him. He said, "How did you know that?" Richard said, "It's in the summary, 5th paragraph." Marcus said, "I know what's in the summary. I'm asking how you remember it." Richard said, "Because 14 pitches before this one is a data point. It tells me something." Marcus said, "What does it tell you?" Richard said, "That you're still here." He paused. Most people stop at 6 or 7. The ones who get to 14 have either a significant problem with the pitch or a significant conviction in the idea. Marcus said, "Which do you think it is?" Richard said, "I think your pitch is unconventional. No slides, no deck, no co-founder, no institutional names to drop. Everything about it tells a pattern-matching investor no." He paused. "I think the conviction is the real thing." Marcus said, "The conviction is the only thing I have." He said it simply. "I don't have a co-founder because I couldn't find one who understood the problem the way someone who had lived it understands it. I don't have institutional backing because the institutional investors I pitched looked at the market and saw the regulatory complexity before they looked at the 4,300 people who are navigating a cardiac event or a cancer diagnosis without insurance and needed something to hold on to. I built this because someone had to, and I happened to be the one who knew how." Richard said, "Why are you telling me this without slides?" Marcus said, "Because slides are for the idea. You already read the idea. You read it twice." He looked at Richard with his dark, direct eyes. "You're here to decide whether to trust the person. I can't put that in a slide." Richard looked at the one-page summary on the table. He looked at the man across from it, the second-hand suit tailored to fit, the empty hands, the index card he had not looked at once. He said, "I need to ask you something, and I need an honest answer." Marcus said, "That's the only kind I have." Richard said, "If I say no today, are you done?" Marcus was quiet for a moment. He said, "No." Richard said, "How many more before you stop?" Marcus said, "I don't know." He said it without bravado and without defeat, simply honest. "I know that 4,300 people are using something I built in my apartment because nobody else built it. I know that 81% of them are still using it 6 months later. I know that my mother uses it." He paused. "I don't know how many more no's it takes before that stops being enough to keep going. I haven't found the number yet." Richard said, "I see." He looked at the summary for a moment. He looked at Marcus. He said, "I'm going to be direct with you." Marcus said, "Please." He said, "My framework says no to this deal on 3 separate metrics: solo founder, pre-seed ask in an undercapitalized market, healthcare regulatory complexity. Any one of those is a standard decline. All three together is a clear decline. He paused. And then there's the 12% and the 81% and the $11 CAC and the fact that you just gave me the clearest articulation of a real problem that I've heard in 4 years of this meeting. And the index card you haven't looked at once. Marcus said, "What about it?" Richard said, "What's on it?" Marcus said, "The 3 things I would say if I lost the thread." He paused. "I didn't lose the thread." Richard said, "No, you didn't." He picked up his phone. He said, "I'm going to make 3 calls. I want you to wait in the lobby." Marcus stood. He was at the door when Richard said, "Mr. James?" He turned. Richard said, "The first version. The spreadsheet you built for your mother. Do you still have it?" Marcus said, "I have every version, from the spreadsheet to now." Richard said, "I want to see them, all of them. Send them to my assistant tonight." Marcus said, "All right." He paused. "Why?" Richard said, "Because I want to understand how a person builds something from a spreadsheet to 4,300 users with 2 small grants and no marketing spend." He looked at him over his silver-rimmed glasses. "That's not common. That's a specific kind of person. I want to understand the kind." Marcus left the conference room. He walked down the corridor toward the elevator. He pressed the button. He stood and waited with the specific stillness of someone who has been waiting for a long time and has learned to be very good at it. His phone had been on silent. He turned the ringer on in the elevator. By the time the doors opened on the lobby floor, it was already ringing. It was not Richard. It was a number he did not recognize, a 617 area code, Boston. He answered. The voice said, "My name is Patricia Alderton. I'm Richard's partner. He just called me from the conference room. He said I need to hear your pitch before you leave the building. Is that possible?" Marcus looked at the lobby around him, the marble floor, the security desk, the revolving door to the street. He said, "I just got to the lobby." She said, "Can you come back up?" He pressed the elevator button again. He went back up. He pitched again, not the same pitch, a version of it informed by the 12 minutes that had just happened, sharper and more specific in the places where Richard's questions had shown him where the sharpness was needed. Patricia Alderton listened with the focused attention of someone who had already decided to take it seriously and was now deciding how seriously. By 6:45, he had spoken to Richard's 2 other partners by phone. They asked the same questions Richard had asked in different language. He answered in the same way, without slides, without the index card, from the place where the 4,300 people were. He left the building at 7:10. The street outside was the ordinary evening of a city, traffic, the beginning of the dinner hour, people going home. He stood on the sidewalk for a moment. His phone rang. Richard. He said, "We'd like to proceed with due diligence. The 800,000 is the right number for the runway you described. We'll need 6 weeks to complete the process." Marcus said, "All right." Richard said, "One more question. The index card." Marcus said, "Yes." Richard said, "The 3 things on it, what were they?" Marcus was quiet for a moment. Then he said, 1, the problem is real. 2, the solution works. 3, my mother uses it. Richard was quiet on the other end. He said, "That's the whole pitch." Marcus said, "That's the whole pitch." He said, "You should have started there." Marcus said, "I did. You just took 12 minutes to hear it." Richard said, "Yes." He said it with the specific quality of a man who has just been told something accurate and is accepting it. "I'll have my assistant send the due diligence checklist tomorrow." He ended the call. Marcus stood on the sidewalk with his phone in his hand. The city moved around him. 12 minutes and 6 months of due diligence and 4 years of building something and 11 years of watching his mother and 14 pitches before this one. He called his mother. She answered on the second ring. He said, "I need to tell you something." She said, "Is it good?" He said, "I think so. I don't know yet for certain, but I think so." She said, "Tell me." He told her. She was quiet for a long time when he finished. Then she said, "Baby, I've been using that app for 2 years. I've been telling everyone I know about that app. You know that." He said, "I know." She said, "So somebody finally listened." He said, "Somebody finally listened." She said, "It's about time." He laughed. It was a real laugh, the surprised, released kind. He stood on the sidewalk outside a venture capital firm on a Thursday evening in April and laughed with his mother on the phone, and the city moved around him, indifferent and full. And somewhere in an office building behind him, a man named Richard was on the phone with his partner saying, "Because I almost missed it." He had not missed it. Neither had Marcus. If this story moved you, please like this video, leave a comment, and share it with someone who needs to hear it today. Subscribe to Stillwater Stories for more stories of courage, grace, and the small human decisions that turn out to matter more than anyone knew. And tell us in the comments, have you ever almost missed something that turned out to matter more than anything else that day?